Welcome to the Fright Lab. I'm Lucas Yoakum. With me tonight, as always, is our fearless, dauntless producer, Joseph Wren. And we are live in studio tonight. Well, by the time you hear it, it won't be live, but you know what I mean. With the second of our Fright Lab experiments. Specifically, tonight, we experimented with I'm struggling to come up with a singular description for this movie, but we're just going to go ahead and say it. Saint Clare. Now, according to IMDb, it is a comedy, horror, thriller, mystery. And I've got to level with you, dear audience. That doesn't even come close to trying to describe this movie. Joe, before I begin to hog the mic, as you know I am wont to do, where do we go with this one? How do we even start this conversation?
Welcome, all of you gruesome people, my friends. How are you tonight? Have you watched a strange Italian horror thriller lately? I just did, and I had a good time with it. Depending on where you look, this film was made either in 2023 or 2024. It's not quite ready for mainstream viewing because I don't know where you can watch it, but I'm excited to talk about it because I've heard it's coming, and what you're going to see is really, really spectacular. It's going to subvert some of those expectations that we all know and love. And when has that ever been a bad thing? I think we need to go, Lucas, right into it. What is this film?
Okay, so let's do the housekeeping part up front. Let's get the technical specs out of the way. Saint Clare stars Bella Thorne, Ryan Philippe, and Rebecca De Mornay. Now, according to my notes, and this is as best as I've been able to find, this was released today, the time of this recording, August 25th, 2024, at the UK Fright Fest. And according to everything I could find online, it will be streaming in the US on Plex as of September 4th, probably with other locations to come. So, it was directed by an Italian director, Mitzi Pirone. I'm sorry, Mr. Pirone, if I mispronounced your name. It was written by Don Roth, who wrote the original novel, Claire at 16. The screenplay, again, was Don Roth, Mitzi Pirone, and a favorite of mine, Guinevere Turner. Now, if that name is firing some neurons for you, Guinevere Turner is probably best known as one of the writers of Mary Herron's American Psycho. But that's not the extent of her career, very obviously. She also was involved in I Shot Andy Warhol and the Notorious Betty Page, along with a number of other acting roles and a few other spots. If you are not onto the Guinevere Turner train, friends, siblings, one and all, you're missing out. You need to follow this woman. Right. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts part that we've got to get out of the way, where you can watch it, who's in it. But we all know, deep down, that every movie is not just the sum of its cast and crew. And kudos to the cast and crew. Let's start here.
Everything I have said and done has been in the hands of God. Everything I have said and done has been in the hands of God. I was born to do this. I am not afraid.
In a little over 90 minutes, at no point did I know exactly where this movie was going to land. If you watch a lot of horror like Joe and I do, if you watch just a lot of movies like Joe and I do, you know, you kind of figure out the beats. right? You kind of figure out the plot somewhere along the way. The first act, second act, third act, you get there pretty quickly. We did not get there very quickly. There was a lot of points where I genuinely didn't quite know where the movie was going to go. And for that reason, I was very pleasantly surprised. But we all know that a few Shyamalan-esque twists aside, that's not a movie, right? That's not enough to make a good movie. That's not a Fright Lab movie. No, I'm pleased to report Saint Clare might be the sleeper movie of this year, for me anyway. I was not expecting something that is so simultaneously psychedelic and visceral. It has a lot of, unique elements. Some of the terms Joe and I came to, and we're not going to spoil too many details. We don't like spoiling plots unless we have to. There's moments of this film where it's like, okay, well, this is a pretty straightforward horror movie. I know this story. I know this story. It's a person with a knife. You know where that goes.
Person with a knife.
Let's be real for just a moment. We all know that person with a knife is practically a subgenre of its own. But then the movie switches gears fairly quickly on. And the term I came to describe this was that Saint Clare was a Nancy Drew story by way of Bret Easton Ellis. And if you're wondering, Lucas, Bret Easton Ellis, how do I know that name? Well, here again, Bret Easton Ellis is the notorious scumbag who wrote American Psycho and Less Than Zero, amongst other things. So if Patrick Bateman and Nancy Drew had a love child, that would be Saint Clare. So again, it's a Fright Lab joint. It's weird. It's scary. It kind of goes all over the place. But the thing that I keep seeing, again, people keep calling this a horror comedy. Joe, at any point would you describe this movie as funny?
100%. I laughed more than once for unrelated reasons to the plot. There is some mania that goes on that it's hard for me to talk about this movie without saying it, but there are some funny things that occur. And once you get deep into the plot and you realize how scary this movie really is, those feel very much out of place. And I think it's a good character study to watch those things fade away for just a moment, because that's what should happen when what happens happens. I want to read the summary of this film directly from IMDb. In a small town, a solitary woman is haunted by voices that lead her to assassinate ill-intended people and get away with it until her last kill sucks her down a rabbit hole riddled with corruption, trafficking, and visions from the beyond. This film opens with, I believe, a quote from Joan of Arc. And I'm going to leave it there for just a moment, because when you know what you're getting into and it starts with a reference to Joan of Arc, there's going to be some mania. There's going to be some madness. And I enjoyed watching that break down. You said that this film doesn't subvert expectation, or does it? I think this film plays with your expectations kind of in a Scream way, but do not assume that you're going to sit down and watch a Scream knockoff or a wannabe. There's things you've seen here before, and I like what you said. It's a mystery, which is really what it feels like. It reminds me of, I can't say it without spoiling the movie, I feel like, but there's a good thriller, a really good thriller, not so much a scary movie, but it pushes your perception of the events that are happening far enough to the side that you might not see it coming. And I guarantee by the end, you won't see it coming.
This movie does some interesting stuff. You were talking about it as a mystery and a thriller. It is, it's all of that stuff. And there's a part of me that as I was watching, some of the kind of the visual storytelling of it reminded me a lot of Argento doing maybe Inferno or Phenomenon. Some of his I mean, everything Argento does is good. Yes, we understand that. But his maybe slightly less popular films, it has elements of that, but it's more than that. There's a deeply cerebral side to this story, even though this movie's more about tickling the back brain than the frontal cortex, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of gut punches in this film. It shifts violently between these sort of dreamlike, sleepy, almost ether-soaked sort of imagery, and then just absolutely kicks you in the balls with and here's the actual thing that's happening in this sequence. But it never lies to you. It never deceives you. It could have gone the route of Tarsim Singh's The Cell, and in a couple of places it kind of does.
Absolutely it does.
But at the same time, it kind of dials back the kind of hyper-stylized, beautiful living painting thing. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a living painting, but kind of Van Gogh at his darkest and not, one of the great Dutch masters or something like that. It's it's one of those movies that, trying to talk about the plot, I want you guys to go see this wherever you can see it. If you can get it on a movie screen, do it. If you have to watch it streaming, do it. Do it on the biggest screen you got if you can do it. So we were watching the credits. The only thing I can come up with that accurately sums this all up, we were watching the credits and I saw, the music is by Zola Jesus. That explains everything you need to know about
so many things.
Yeah, explains the entire aesthetic of the film. It's beautiful and ugly at the same time. It's dreamlike, but very believable. It's playing with some very modern fears, with some very modern ideas, but all the same, it feels very late 70s, early 80s. It's playing with the style as the substance, like we do say of so many films. So I'm trying to find a way to say this that doesn't make me sound, sycophantic or desperate or something. But we say this with every time we talk about a movie that we get to review. If there is someone in the cast and crew who would like to talk to us, I have so many questions about the production of this film. If Ms. Guinevere Turner, Mr. Roth, Mr. Peroni, Ms. Thorne, anyone, if you served sandwiches on this film set, I want to talk to you. And I know. That sounds a lot less dignified than you normally expect out of me. And if you believe that, I have a bridge I'd like to sell you. No, jokes aside, this is just one of those rare films that just comes completely out of left field. When we had the opportunity to give this movie a watch, it was just very like, all right, yeah, this looks like my bag. I like stuff that has funny colors and is a little violent. And I got so much more out of this film than I was expecting. This is maybe the most exciting movie I've seen all year. And I know that sounds ridiculous because I'm always effusive about movies because I love them so much, but holy shit, guys, you've got to see this movie as soon as you possibly can. What am I missing here, Joe? How do we give the vibe of this movie to our audience?
Again, I have to go to IMDb, and I'm going to read the storyline. Claire Bleecker is an average Catholic high school student who lives with her grandparents after being orphaned. She seems normal, but Claire will do whatever it takes to protect loved ones when confronted by the evil she faces in her small town. When this film starts, you're going to get a period piece vibe from it. Maybe 30 years in the past, but that's immediately eliminated by the presence of cell phones. That's not the point. The point is you're being set up for some very classic, horrifying ideas that maybe we don't think about today, but we were all told about stranger danger once upon a time. My point. when was the last time you watched La Femme Nikita?
Yeah.
It's been a while, and I really enjoyed seeing something like that again.
Yeah, there are elements of this movie that they feel admittedly over the top, but kind of everything in this film feels a little over the top, so it's not taking you wildly out of the story. It does this interesting, I don't know, genre bending thing. I'm struggling to find a word. It kind of crosses a lot of currents. Yes, it is a horror movie. There is stuff in it that is deeply upsetting. Some of it feels maybe supernatural, maybe, but then again, it could just be the inner workings of a deeply troubled mind, and it is sort of in that regard maybe closer to like Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer than it is, say, I don't know, any A24 film that's come out in the last couple of years. But it's not overly gruesome. It is violent. Let us not mince words. It is a alarmingly, upsettingly violent film, but it's violent in this way that swings between, as Joe pointed out, La Femme Nikita, this very stylized, cool, superhero kind of violence, and then it immediately dives into, oh no, that's actually how you hurt someone with that weapon, and it would be an incredibly brutal injury that put most people on the floor. I'm struggling here to say, like, yes, it's La Femme Nikita. Yes, it's Inferno. Yes, it's David Fincher's Zodiac. It's kind of all of this stuff smashed together.
There's a flying head scissors in one of these fight scenes. Please drink when you see the flying head scissors. You're welcome.
Few things make me quite so happy as a nascent element of lucha libre being born into otherwise unexpected films. Call me crazy, but lucha por vida. You know, it's just one of these things, though, that, you know, I rant so much throughout the runtime of our episodes about getting away from the mainstream and just watching something different. And this is one of those movies that's a real victory of that. I feel like Joe and I, you know, when I say we, Joe and I have been very lucky in the last like 6 months to have so much good stuff coming from, I don't want to say underground. I mean, there are production companies involved with this. It's not exactly a VHS tape I found at the park, you know? But it is not what I was expecting at all. And it makes me feel pretty good, like, oh yeah, okay, there are people who are on this wavelength. I mean, I feel like 2024 has been a pretty good year for horror. You know, we had a movie like Late Night with the Devil, which, you know, was a Shudder exclusive. David Dastmalchian is one of my favorites. That felt, because it was so left field and kind of, I mean, there was a little bit of I don't know, a little bit of press noise that made that movie, you know, on my radar. And of course it showed up on Shudder, so naturally I saw it. But I love that movies like this are happening, that they're just kind of like, yeah, we don't need to obey a lot of rules. I mean, sure, it gives you the 3-act structure. It gives you all the stuff that you're expecting if you grew up watching movies in our country. But it's just so much better than that. And to Mitzi Perum, the director, that was amazing. That you really knocked it out of the park. I'm very, very impressed with that. So when this comes on streaming, you've got to give it a watch. We're going to switch gears here for just a second. We want to do a little bit of housekeeping, a little bit of maintenance, let's say. We've been asked by a number of fans over the last couple of months, hey guys, are you guys going to like do a Patreon or something? And the answer is yes. We're looking right now at a formal launch date of October, probably end of the month. We will probably get a lot of that stuff really moving around January, February. It takes time to get this stuff rolling. You know, we have other commitments, unfortunately. Unfortunately, this is not a full-time job yet. But I do want to kind of bring up the point of October. So I was looking back at some notes the other day, and I saw that we're coming up now on the second year of the Fright Lab. Can you guys believe that? That we dropped our first episode on October 30th of 2022, and it is now late August of 2024. We're coming up on 2 years, and it's a truly amazing thing that we've been able to do here. And as a result, we've been committed to the show, obviously, but we want to actually take this up to the next level. Now, we don't have everything written in stone yet, so, stuff will change as development goes on. But we are intending with Patreon to have a number of different tiers that will give you guys opportunities to pay. And we get it, right? The economy, it sucks. It's a headache. All of us are working. None of us are doing this full time yet. But we understand that you may not be able to pay. We get that. What we will ask of you, though, is, believe it or not, we say this on every episode, but believe it or not, rating our show on different pod playing apps, different podcatchers, actually helps us quite a bit. Another thing, and again, people don't believe this because there's so much money out there that's pushing products. Word of mouth advertising works. Sharing episodes with your friends and family or horror adjacent buddies of yours, it helps. It actually does work. We want to do more with this show. Yeah, we enjoy our regular episodes, and we will always make sure that our regular episodes, the stuff that we've done like 40 of by now, it's probably closer to 35. I'm exaggerating a little. But the thing that we've done so many episodes of will always be free. Period. Hands down. We will never, ever gouge you guys for that. Now, we do want to do more, though, and that could mean a number of different things. We are thinking about some hangout online stuff, maybe once a month, twice a month, something like that. I'll be forced to play a horror video game while you guys ask me questions or something. So you can really watch me panic. It'll be a good time for you. We're thinking about that. We have a Discord, as we've said at the end of virtually every episode for the last 6 months. We have a Discord that we are going to make, again, the Discord will always be free, but there will be a members only section where you can kind of talk to us and get an immediate kind of response sort of thing. We're really just open to a lot of possibilities right now. And we genuinely believe that we can be an even bigger and even better show for you guys in 2025. And that's kind of ultimately our goal here. We also may have a couple other things happening. We can't say anything right now. We can't give you definite names of things, but there are other projects in the works that may happen. And this is not like, oh, give us money so we can do that. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I want you guys to know there may be more material coming your way relatively soon that is featuring myself and Joe and I don't know, the Discuss Podcasts Extended Universe, the Cinematic Universe. What are we calling this, Joe? Do we have a name for this yet?
I like to call it, what do you want to talk about? Listen to us talk, in fact, is what I have called it many times.
That's a terrible thing to put on a business card.
Here's the good news, though. If you're having as much fun with this as we are, we're going to give you a little bit more. And like Lucas said, you asked, we listened. Patreon is coming. We appreciate your support every single time you download an episode, every single time you leave a comment, every single time you subscribe to the Fright Lab. That's what we're here for. We're going to give you a little more. And isn't that what everybody wants? I know that's what I want. I think the next series of releases following this episode is going to be our slasher trilogy. And if I have my way, it's going to become a slasher quadrilogy. I have a good reason, and you should stay subscribed if you want to know what that reason is.
Yeah, we've had a couple of listeners, and I'm not going to name any names, but they know who they are, who have been yelling at me like, hey, can you do some movies I've actually seen before? Which, to my response, I gave you guys Hellraiser. Don't give me that crap. But jokes aside, we finally decided to bite the bullet. We're going to do a 3-parter on slashers because, as I learned, you apparently can't do that in one episode, which, I don't know. I was hoping we could do that, but it doesn't seem to be the case. So it is a definite trilogy. Joe here says it's a quadrilogy, and we all know that word was made up for aliens, so I'm just not going to pick that fight right now. Jokes aside, that's coming down the pipe. We have some more, I think, fun stuff coming up for the end of the year as well. And with that, we're going to leave you tonight. Again, as soon as you guys get a chance, as soon as it's available, go watch Saint Clare. It rules. It is so much fun. It is so fucked up. You'll love it. And in the meantime, I need to ask you guys a question because we've thrown a lot at you tonight and it doesn't all seem connected, right? But what do you guys think? What do you want to see us do with a Patreon? Like, what would be some perks you're interested in? We're thinking shout outs. We're thinking Discord hangouts. We're thinking early access to episodes, all that good stuff. What's some other stuff you'd like to see? Would you like to see us do videos? Would you like to just see just more episodes? You need to let us know. And there's some ways you can let us know. You can contact us at our email, always, at thefrightlabpodcast@gmail.com. We are available on Letterboxd as Fright Lab Pod. That's all one word. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram as Fright_Lab_pod. Let's see. There's Discord. Joe, what's the name of our Discord again?
The Fright Lab Podcast can be found on Discord at discord.thefrightlab.com. The links are always going to be in the show notes to all of our social media. And that's important because we know everyone has a preference how they want to engage. And wherever you need us to be, we want to be there to have that conversation with you. But if you're asking me if I can have my way, we want you on that Discord server. That is where this conversation is continuing. That's where Lucas and I are going to be playing some of those horror-themed video games we talked about. And when Patreon comes, that's where the hangouts are going to be. So stay tuned and thank you for listening to this podcast. If this is your first episode, if this is your most recent episode, we really appreciate you. Please find that place on your phone. Scroll to the left, the right. Find where you can leave the thumbs up or the 5-star review and tell everyone how much you're enjoying this podcast. Again, we want to hear from you, the Fright Lab Podcast at gmail.com. Lucas, please tell everyone how much we appreciate independent artists and independent media.
Well, we just watched a movie tonight that proves to me something that I've known for years. If you want good horror, and who doesn't want good horror, right? It's getting towards October. Who doesn't want good horror? If you want good horror, if you want good media at all, be that romance, be that comedy, be that drama, whatever. If you want the good stuff, you need to support independent artists. Because yeah, there's good stuff happening with the major studios. I saw Alien Romulus. I thought it was fun. But the good stuff is happening outside the mainstream. And if you want to get there, you need to tune in to where it's happening. And we want to hear about it. If you have a horror podcast, if you have a movie or a vaguely horror adjacent dark ambient music project or heavy metal or punk or whatever, we want to know about it. So you need to reach out to us so we can talk to you about it and possibly give you guys some time on the air. Because again, if you want to get there fast, go by yourself, but if you want to get there in one piece, you go with your team, and we want to build that team. I keep forgetting every time we do this. Also, we're on YouTube now. Can you believe that shit? You need to go check us out on YouTube. I believe it's under the Discuss Metal tag, which is Joe's other creative entity. I am running out of breath. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in. We are hoping to hear from you all very, very soon, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. Have a good night.
That's Fright Lab for you.